All right, and welcome back to Fourth Down Talk, the show where every down counts and so does your opinion. My name is Albert, and I'm here with the host, Extra Crispy, Chris. Tell them how you doing today.
I am doing well, man. We are Thursday. The season is just flying by, but I am ready to talk about the best parts of it so far and who is going to be there when it's all said and done.
Well, I'm glad you went right to it because today we are going to dive into the top six teams in the NFL who look like serious contenders in the playoffs. We'll be breaking down each team with their strength, pitfalls, maybe some of their weaknesses, and we'll need to see what they need to do to keep the momentum going, just so they can get to that promised land of the Super Bowl and try to win it all. We're also going to be talking about tonight's game that's going to be coming up against the Bengals and the
It's going to be a
Ravens,
good
which is
one.
going to be a huge matchup, divisional matchup. Very important game. In fact, we may be talking about one of these teams in the top six, but let's go ahead and break it down. Let's go ahead and start with Chris. Who do you have already set as a playoff contender?
I mean, let's just get the obvious one out of the way. The two-time defending champion, undefeated Kansas City Chiefs. If you don't have them in your top, I mean, you're just not paying attention. This team, even though they're not on paper, they're not playing 100% well. They get what they need to get done when it needs to get done. Patrick Mahomes throws when he needs to, runs when he needs to. They lean heavily on Kareem Hunt. They have Travis Kelce waiting if they need to. They just picked up DeAndre Hopkins. We will go into that a little bit later. And currently, as it stands right now, they are 10th in offense and 5th in total defense. This team is essentially sleepwalking, and they are currently the biggest favorite to go undefeated in a long time. It's insane.
No, you're right. The Chiefs are pretty much looking like a team that is just almost hard to stop. They aren't just defending champs, but they're looking to try to stay unbeaten with adding on DeAndre Hopkins, who's already a force in himself, and you add him next to Kelsey. So you have that issue. As far as I'm concerned, it's an issue, especially for the rest of
Mm-hmm.
the league. The secondary is going to be working overtime. Now, despite the struggles, the defense has shown up in clutch moments for them because you mentioned
Absolutely.
this a while back that if you trade Patrick Mahomes' numbers with Joe Burrow, it would be making a lot more sense with this record. But Patrick Mahomes is not having a great season, and yet they're still staying in with it. Andy Reid, creative offensive genius, still finding ways to make sure that the team can adapt when those deficiencies start to show. But adding DeAndre Hopkins only makes them a better. Plus, you got to talk about that red zone efficiency that they
Mm-hmm.
have. One of the best teams when it comes to defense in the red zone and in offense. I don't know. I hate to say it, but there's a strong possibility that they could three-peat.
Not only three-peat, but there's a possibility they could run the table. Now, it is a possibility that they just run into a game that they're just underestimating or a team wants to play harder than them, especially the later we get into the season, because what you don't want to do as the Chiefs is start taking on injuries this late in the year. So they might start taking their foot off the gas a little. They might even concede a game or two because if they're still in first place, what does it matter? It doesn't. Because as long as they're that number one seed and they get that bye week, it really won't matter by the time we get to the end of the season. But I don't think they're going to run the table. I think they're going to run into an opponent that just wants to be that team to knock them off. And once they do that, I think that's actually going to be the worst thing because once you piss them off, they might actually get stronger.
Well, coming up, they're going to be playing the Denver Broncos. And after that, they're also going to be playing another team, the Buffalo Bills.
Buffalo Bills. Yeah.
Now, do you see the Buffalo Bills as a possible contender in this regard?
The Buffalo Bills, statistically, you would say no. But if you look at their record, they're 7-2. They got Josh Allen. They got a coach that knows how to win regular season games. And that very sneaky pickup of Amari Cooper is going to come in very handy. They got some really strong contenders in their rookie class. Keon Coleman, the rookie wide receiver. He's big. He knows how to catch, but he's still a little raw. He's learning. Mike Gesicki, I don't know where that came from. I'm sorry, he's not on that team. It's Dalton Knox and who's the other one? Who are their
Oh,
tight ends?
no.
I can't,
Oh, give me
I
yeah.
can't believe it's Knox, and they had another tight end that does well as well for blocking. But as long as you have Josh Allen and an offensive game script that favors you, it's kind of hard to count against the Bills. And if there's one thing the Bills are good at, it's beating the Chiefs in the regular season. So
That
yeah,
appears to be.
I have them as a contender. They are on my contending team list, but they are the third ranked team in the AFC, in my
All right, well, you have them in rankings. So, yeah, let's go to your next team
opinion.
in that case, well, as far as who would be another tough. Well, before you do, let me go ahead and add on to the Bills in that case, because I do see the Bills as a contender. One of the
Mm-hmm.
things that the Bill does is that no one's talking about them this year. And I don't know, maybe that's a good thing, because we've seen the Bills in this position before. So it isn't much to kind of just sit there and be like, oh, look how well they are. We know how good they are. Look, but here's the
Hmm.
key thing. Josh Allen, guess what he's not doing? Turning the ball over. That's a huge issue that he's always had before. He's
It
already got
is.
around 2,000 yards plus with 17 touchdowns. He's keeping it efficient in that lane where he's maintaining an offense and not putting the defense on the field they don't need to be. Plus, the Bills have become really good at converting red zone as well in their red zone offenses in their well, in
Hmm.
that extent as well with touchdowns. And they also seem to be able to go ahead and have a multifunctional defense in that regard too.
That's
I
weird,
like the
right?
Bills to. I like having the Bills kind of get deep into it. I think if they played against any of these other teams, they could have a strong chance of winning the entire ordeal, the Super Bowl. If they can get past Patrick Mahomes, I don't know any team in
Yeah.
the NFC that could really compete against them.
Well, we'll find out a little bit of that sooner enough rather than later. There is another team on the contending list that does play the Bills, and it's my team. So we will find some answers to that question maybe in a little bit. But no, Josh Allen, that is a fascinating thing because the past few years, if you ask certain analysts especially, Josh Allen has led the league in interceptions since he entered it. But this year, no one's talking about the fact he has what, one, two? He has very little interceptions. Two,
Too.
yeah,
He's doing a really
two.
good
I think
job, man.
I
He's really
think
doing a
that
good
might
job
be
at
the
it.
least. That might be the least of all starters right now. Two interceptions.
I believe it is. And that's impressive considering because, he's usually a turnover machine if it isn't with interceptions. He even does it
Hmm.
with fumbles to some degree, too.
Yeah, how is he doing on fumbles? That's a good question. That's what I wanted to look up.
Oh, none for the year, I believe. Let me just double
Oh
check and
wow,
see. Oh, I take that. No, I take that back. He has one, two, three, four, five fumbles on the year.
five fumbles, two picks, seven turnovers, and we're heading into week 10. I mean, that's not bad considering some people have more than that just in interceptions alone.
Exactly. I don't know. It's just he's not throwing as many picks because on average
He
he throws
has,
double-digit picks every season.
I mean, he has seven total turnovers to Patrick Mahomes has nine interceptions alone.
Interesting.
Very strange how this team operates because the Bills statistically, they're not jumping off the page in anything. Maybe that's why they're not being talked about because they're 15th in total offense, middle of the road, and they're 17th in total defense, middle of the road. There's nothing too crazy about them on either end. They don't allow a terrible ton, but they don't also score a terrible ton. They just do just enough to beat out their opponent. 7-2,
Yeah,
the division is essentially locked up for them, so they're going to get a playoff spot. Now, can
but
they
it's
avoid the
also that though.
Chiefs?
Oh, that's the thing, right? That's the thing. It's another reason to talk about it because you know who they are. You
Yeah,
know who they can be. It's just, can you do it? Can you do it in January? Can they beat the Chiefs? That's the question. Because they're going to win the
yeah.
division. It's not a strong division. They play fortunate in the AFC East, which is against the Jets, Dolphins, and of course the new Patriots. I
What
like the
does need
Bills.
to be what does need to be mentioned though is that not only do they struggle in the playoffs against the Chiefs, they've struggled in the playoffs just in the playoffs in general over the past few years. They struggled to beat the Tua-less Dolphins. They did beat them. They lost to Joe Burrow at home in the playoffs not that long ago. So there is something going on with that playoff team of the Bills that they need to get over if they want to get to the Super Bowl. Because they've been to the AFC title game once with Josh Allen and they have not made it back since.
No, they haven't. But you know what? They did pick up Amari Cooper. That
That
also
is a
helps
help.
to improve the offense as well. That could be something that could be a dividing rod where it takes you from one end to the next end. Um, I like their chances though. And again, it's just that Josh Allen's playing really well, taking care of the ball, not turning it over from the
Hmm.
standpoint of an interception as opposed to a fumble. He always putting the team on his back, but like you mentioned, they're not blowing teams out. That could be Josh Allen not trying to put the entire thing on his back like he used to, trying to force more so being a game manager and just taking care of it as far as needing to do that when it's necessary. I don't know. I think they're learning from that past, and you might see a new outcome.
It's going to be real interesting to see who they take on in the playoffs. Because that is very concerning for me, who they actually draw as a playoff opponent. Because as it
Very
stands
true.
right now, what are they, second in the AFC?
Yeah, I believe so.
They should be, yeah.
Win
Which
losses. Yeah, they're
which
second, 7-2.
which which means they're going to play whoever that seventh seed is.
Oh, well, Denver.
Currently Denver, I don't expect it to stay Denver.
Well, it's either between, well, right now as it stands, Denver, Cincinnati, or the Chargers. That was just
Chargers
a
are
preseason.
very Chargers are quietly doing very well right now. but they're not on my contenders list. No offense to Jim Harbaugh. Sorry, man. You did great for us when you were here in San Francisco. I don't believe in the Chargers. Maybe that's a personal bias. Maybe.
I get you. All right.
Incidentally, they're on my list called maybe. Because when I was putting together my contending teams and putting together my pretending teams, I came across two teams that I didn't know what to do with them. Because they're not bad necessarily, but I don't know if I can call them good. And that's the Chargers. The Chargers are 5-3, and the Rams are 4-4. Both teams can play a full game. When they play a 60-minute game, they do well, but they just can't seem to get it done when they need to. I don't know. I don't know what to do with them. I can't put them in a pretender list because I don't think legitimately. I do not think the Rams are pretenders. I think when the Rams are healthy, they could easily beat anyone else in our division and take that top spot. There's still a chance they win the division.
No, that's a very good point. And then plus, the Rams, they have a pretty good offense in their own right as well. It
They
is kind
do.
of hard to determine. The thing is, will they win the division? That's what it comes down to. Because I think that's the way they'll have to get in. Outside of that, do you think they can get a wild card spot? At least for the
If they
Rams?
if they keep playing well, they can get a wild card spot, but they would need someone in the NFC North to stop playing well, which means either the Vikings or the Packers would have to falter for them to get in as a wild card spot. Because right now the NFC North is locking up a lot of the wild card spots. They're taking up at
Yeah.
least two of them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it does look like it. I don't know. I don't know. I don't have the Rams pretty much making it that far either. I don't have them winning the division, let alone getting into the playoffs. So I don't know. I didn't really think about them from that standpoint. And the Chargers, I do feel like the Chargers are more so in sort of a rebuilding state where they're not even putting their full best game out there just yet. They're just trying to really kind of muster up and see what they can do. If they make the playoffs, hey, extra bonus points, we'll take it. But I don't know if that's really the goal. I know, of
They
course,
are
every team's going to win it, but
They are currently eighth in total defense. They've given up the fewest rushing touchdowns in the league, and they've given up close to the fewest passing touchdowns in the league. They don't really let you score on them. Unfortunately, they are also ranked 23rd in offense, so they're not lighting up the scoreboard either. They're just doing
mm,
just enough to squeak by. And come the playoffs, especially on the AFC side, that's not going to cut it. You are going to have to start scoring
but they
because
don't
when you
have
run
Keenan
into
Allen, they don't have Mike Williams, they don't have the
no, they
top
don't.
receivers anymore. They lost a lot of key players, so yeah,
No, they
yeah.
have Quentin Johnston, who after his pretty bad rookie year, I was gonna start writing him off, but he's recovered. He's become a decent receiver for them, and of course McConkey. He is also becoming Justin Herbert's favorite target.
You got Shark, DJ Shark. He still plays football out there.
I was gonna say I ain't heard that man's name in quite some time.
Yeah, it's been a minute. All right. All right. Well, let's see. Who else do you have on your list as actual contenders, though?
Yes. Now, the Bills are up there. Don't get me wrong. I do have appreciation for Josh Allen, but if they run into this next team, I think they might have a problem because Lamar Jackson and the Ravens are, in my opinion, they might not be statistically there. I think they're the second best team in the AFC.
Hmm. All right. All right. Go ahead. Go a little bit deeper in that.
Oh, I mean, they lead the league in offense. Hands down, they have the best offense. And it's not close, by the way. It's not particularly close. They lead the league on the ground between Lamar running, Derrick Henry running. Lamar is top 3 in passing right now for the people who claim he's just a running back. He is in number 3 in passing yards. Zay Flowers is his best wide receiver, and I don't know if Zay Flowers would be a number 1 on a lot of teams. That's the thing for me. Zay Flowers is their top receiver. They just picked up Deontay Johnson, also not a number 1 on most teams. He's a number 2 on most teams at best. But they have Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, a Super Bowl winning coach, and a very good offensive scheme. Now, can that offensive scheme continue to hold in the playoffs, which is what it has not done since he's gotten there? I don't know what happens between the regular season and the playoffs, but Lamar turns into a different player, and the offense stops doing what got you to the dance. If you're a running team, you keep running. You don't stop running just because you're playing against a certain quarterback. And I think that's going to be their downfall if they don't get that under control. I do think they beat the
So
Bills, though.
that sounds like a shot at Jim Harbaugh. That's what that sounds like.
I mean, you use what got you to the dance. Remember when the 49ers had Jimmy Garoppolo and we had an entire playoff game where he threw 8 passes because we were a running team? and you use what got you to the dance.
No, I don't disagree with that. I get where you're coming from. 'Cause that is very true. You always try to put your best foot forward, and that's what your identity is, which is what the Ravens are. They are a run first team. Look, they're already the number one running team. What do? They add in the number one rusher. Derrick Henry right now has over 1,000 yards rushing with 11 TDs. He's
Crazy.
adding to the dynamics that Lamar Jackson already has. Lamar, by the way, he has already 2,300 yards with 20 touchdowns, plus only two interceptions himself. Very similar in maintaining and taking care of the ball. Plus, you have the defense is not doing too bad themselves. They picked up a pretty good set of interceptions, and they're locking down the most offenses, keeping them in the game when they can. They've only had bad wins. I'm sorry, bad losses. I think against just Cincinnati, but even then, that wasn't a bad loss. They came down to the last moment. They had three losses. Oh, they did lose to the Chiefs, but that was early in the season.
They lost to
They
the
lost to the
Raiders.
Browns.
That's the one. That's the one that throws
That was
everybody
like week
off.
two. Yeah, but that was week
It
two.
doesn't
Here's okay.
matter. They
No, no,
lost to the
no, no,
Raiders.
no. No, here's the thing. Here's the thing we all need to consider. The season doesn't even start until maybe week four because they cut out of preseason games. Some of these
Yeah.
teams aren't even going to practices anymore. So you have two preseason games and then you have your two regular season games. Most of these teams don't even gain an identity until later in the year. Let's not forget that who was it? The Jets. They have three wins. Who was it that started off really well? The Saints. They have two big wins.
Oh
Now look at
yeah.
them right now. Like,
Seahawks too. Seahawks started out 3-0.
so it's always good to remember it's never how you start, it's always how you finish. And so you lose to the Raiders, but they beat the Cowboys, they beat the Bills, they beat the Bengals, they beat the Commanders, they beat the Bucks. They lose to the Browns, but they beat the Broncos, and they beat the Broncos pretty convincingly. I think the Ravens are the best team in football when it
They might
all
be.
said and done. So I have them going to the Super Bowl myself and personally winning it. I think they have a strong chance this year, just simply fueled by the offense and that bolstering defense. I don't know. Lamar Jackson, this is his crowning moment. The only thing that's always stopped them has been shortcomings, but I think
hmm
this year, if any year, will be their year. They're my
I
team.
mean, I
Plus, they
mean,
picked
his
up
main
Tavarius David, Tavarius White, and that strengthens up
his
the defense backfield as well.
his main issue is beating, very similar to Josh Allen. There's a quarterback that stands in both of their ways to getting to the AFC title game and further,
I
and
agree.
that is Patrick Mahomes. And the
I
thing is,
agree.
if they can't beat him, then you're not going anywhere. Now, on the flip side, if Lamar either somehow avoids Patrick or beats him, that's a pretty solid lock. He's only lost to one NFC team, and it was the Giants on a weird play at the end of the game. So there's a strong chance that if they get past the AFC title game, they're going to win the Super Bowl. Like I don't understand who would stop them except my team, and that's out of hubris. Um, we'll get to that in a little bit. But anyone else in the NFC that's a playoff contender right now, except maybe the Lions, and we saw the last time they played, they bowled over the Lions pretty handily. Now, to be fair, off defensively, the Ravens are not as good as they were last year. They're not. They're giving up way more passing yards. They're giving up way more touchdowns, which forces them to be more offensive. But when you have a guy who can run like Derrick Henry, when you have a guy who can take off and score like Lamar Jackson, it doesn't seem to stop them. I mean, they put up double-digit points in every game they have. They haven't had a single like low-scoring game except maybe week one, and they almost won that one if it wasn't for Isaiah Likely's shoe being a size too big.
You take out a few of those games they had against Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, and Josh Allen. Those yards may be different. I hear what you're saying about what they have in yards, but they also went against top tier QBs,
Hey,
and
that's
they
part of
won
the
those games
schedule,
except against. No, I know. I'm just saying though, those stats don't judge how good that defense really is.
and that's the
They went
issue.
against that, but they beat those teams. So that's the thing. I hear what those stats are saying, but I know what this team can do.
I
They
mean,
just have to do it in that key moment. I got
I
belief.
get that because the number one ranked defense overall is Tennessee.
Yes.
And if you ask somebody, they wouldn't tell you that. They wouldn't tell you it's Tennessee.
Well, they wouldn't know because yeah, the record doesn't indicate it because they're a bad second half team. I tell you, if football games was only one half, Titans would be undefeated.
Oh yeah, that's
But
the thing. Their
unfortunately, it's
offense just needs a little work. If they keep that same defensive mindset and work on that offense, which probably means getting rid of Will Levis, they would actually be back in the saddle.
possibly, but they also need a new offensive coordinator. But they're not even contenders or pretenders. There are draft pickers coming up. Let's get back to the contenders list. Who else do you have
hmm
coming up here?
All right, we've given a lot of love to the AFC, so it's time to start visiting the other side of that, and that is, without a doubt, the Detroit Lions. The Detroit Lions, what a story, man. They are just flying all over the field. They have a top 10 offense, seventh they're currently ranked in offense. Jared Goff, I don't know where this efficiency came from. He's never been this efficient. I mean, his completion percentage through the roof. He doesn't seem to throw incompletions. He's catching touchdowns. Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery, Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown. These four guys would be starters on any team. And they're all on the Lions. They just have a way to beat you in the air. They can beat you on the ground. They scheme up trick plays. They just keep you off the field, which does mask one of their biggest flaws is that if they let you stay on the field, their defense can't really stop you for a long time. They can only stop you in short bursts. But if that's all they need to do, well, you're not going to beat. You're just not.
Definitely. And you talk about Jared Goff's sensational completion. He's got Amon-Ra St.
Right.
Brown. The guy has 6 straight games of 100% completions. The guy's not dropping the ball. When your receivers are just that money, where you don't even have to consider whether or not they're going to catch it, you're going to have nothing but substantial success. And that seems to
Right.
be what the Lions are running on. Plus, their defense is definitely top notch as well. They are blowing teams out. They're
They are.
running them out of the building. They're pretty much looking like they're going to single-handedly take over the NFC North, at least for this year, being the
Yeah.
top teams. I don't really see any other team that can stack up against them. Dave was ideal to be a contender, but that's not seem to be true because not too sure what type of Jordan Love you're going to have or whether or not they're going to even start Malik Willis. They're still a contender, but the Vikings still not too sure what Sam Darnold's going to be like and whether or not they're going to fall off. And the Bears, they're not living up to the standard in which a lot of us thought they would. But yeah,
No.
Jared
I
Goff,
mean, they have.
this plus, Jared Goff got experience in the playoffs as well, so he ain't no scrub to the whole thing. They were just shy of winning last year's NFC title game. You call him
Mm-hmm.
Dan Gamble. He did put something on the line that did kind of cost him that in the end. You never know. Maybe he'll learn from those mistakes. But
Right.
yeah, the Lions, some say they're the best team in the NFC, could possibly be the best team in football.
Listen, I am not upset at Dan Campbell for what he did in the NFC title game. It was high risk, high reward. It's just that's what comes along with the gambling. You had a 4th and 2 and a 4th and 3 where everyone else would have just said, take the points. Just take the points, Dan. You'll be fine. But he went for it all and it cost him. That's what happens. Now, will that happen again? Hopefully he's learned his lesson a little bit. I have noticed they haven't been as gambly this year, but they haven't had to be either.
So it's like, yeah.
So when the time comes and they go into, because they're obviously, unless a major collapse happens, they're making the playoffs. So when the time comes, can they do that consistently in the playoffs? Like, Dan, don't get too ahead of yourself. Don't start thinking of just going for the jugular right away. You got to be strategic. All right. Because that strategy cost you your trip to the Super Bowl last year. Now, you are the only team in the NFC to not make the Super Bowl. All right. Ever. They've never been. So this might be your year, Dan. There's a couple teams I can see getting in your way, but this could be your year if you play the cards right, Detroit.
Wait, did the Vikings go to the Super Bowl?
Vikings have lost 4 Super Bowls.
Oh, they lost. Well, they just haven't lost before in a row.
Mhm.
But yeah, I hear with your whole gamble thing, and I get that, but it's just that they haven't needed to. I get that whole standpoint, but okay, you talk about the running back. Gibbs and Montgomery, they're on pace to get 2,300 yards already, 29
There you go.
touchdowns between them two. Amon-Ra St. Brown, as I mentioned before, not dropping the ball. That guy's just guaranteed. We're talking like 8 targets a game, damn
Hmm.
near.
And
So it's like
they don't even have one of their pieces right now, Jamison Williams. They don't have him because he was suspended for a couple of weeks.
so that's
He
the
was
thing I'm saying,
suspended.
right?
Yeah.
They don't have everyone that they need, and they're still making it happen. They got Aiden Hutchinson. He's getting better every week. Jack Campbell. It's just a lot that they have where you talk about a gamble. The question is, what team can put them in a position where they even need to gamble? That becomes the
That's the
real
thing.
concern.
You start asking yourself who, because we have to start asking these questions, who in the NFC is going to take them out? Because someone eventually has to. Now, my money would be someone in their own division. Like, I think right now, this could be a messed up thing to say. This could just be feelings talking. Something tells me right now, if the Lions and the Packers have a playoff match, the Lions might lose that game. They just might.
Maybe,
Maybe.
maybe.
We'll see how they play against them the second time, because this is the same thing that happened last year. Detroit and Green Bay played the first time. Detroit won handily. Detroit and Green Bay played the second time. Green Bay beat their ass. So we'll see. It depends on which Jordan Love decides to show up.
If Jordan Love can't show up, hamstring injuries may prevent him from playing. I don't know. I only have one team that could beat them. But let me hear. What's the rest of your list?
Well, I do have two more teams in the NFC. We're going to talk about one that was kind of in the spotlight, and then they kind of fell off after last season, and that's the Philadelphia Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles are quietly, right now, the second best team in their division. They're technically would be in the playoffs if they started right now. They're 6-2. They're not really being talked about as a full contender. And I have to ask myself why, because I look at them. They have Jalen Hurts. He stopped turning the ball over. They start scoring more points. A.J. Brown, healthy. He's scoring. Devontae Smith is a little hurt. We're going to get back to that in a second. But it's being mitigated by Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley, healthy. If I was a Giants fan, I'd be sick. I'd be sick right now watching this man effortlessly run up and down, hurtling backwards over defenders. It's ridiculous. They are sixth in total offense. They are third in total defense. Only 3 teams are top 10 in both, and they are on that list. However, I can't give them the nod fully. I do think they're a contender, and I think if certain things go their way, they can get to the Super Bowl. I don't see them getting there, though, for one reason, and they're the only team on this list that is purely just the coach, and that's Nick Sirianni. I don't believe in Nick Sirianni. Nick Sirianni is a hothead. He doesn't know how to control his own emotions, whether it's towards his other team or when they beat the Browns by 4 points. He was yelling at their own fans. Do you think I should get fired now? Bro, you beat the Browns by 4 at home. Relax. All right. I don't know what his deal is, but I think he's going to be the reason they don't get back to the Super Bowl.
I hear you. Well, I just want to say, mentioned this before, top 10 ranking in offense, getting about 27.5 yards per game, plus they're the top 10 in defense,
They
only
are.
allowing 18 points a game. We'll say what you will about his coaching. His team seems to be getting it done on both sides of the ball, at least in that degree. They're definitely at least top tier in that degree. AJ Brown doing AJ Brown things out there.
Physical dude, man. That
700
dude is
yards.
hard to guard. He will just outmuscle you for the ball.
Seriously, he's getting 14 yards per catch. Never mind the 5 TDs he already has. I don't know. I didn't have the Eagles in my listing personally because the Jaquan Barkley aspect does add an extra dimension to their offense because you talk about receiving all day with them. And the defense being top 10, that does usually lead to a team that can at least get to a championship game. And then again, I also still think for the whole scenario, what other team in the NFC is that good? I don't have a lot of great NFC teams. I only have
It's
3.
not.
That would be the Lions, the Niners, and I guess in this case the Eagles, because I don't necessarily have a lot of faith in Washington. It's the rookie QB. So
It's
there
this
goes
fact.
that.
It's the fact that it's a rookie QB and it's Dan Quinn. I've seen Dan Quinn
Well,
teams. I don't believe in Dan
eh,
Quinn teams.
I don't know. Dan Quinn did go to a Super Bowl, and then
Yeah,
even
he
with that
lost that
Super
Super
Bowl,
Bowl.
hold on, even with that Super Bowl, they blamed Shanahan. So
Yeah,
is with that, I get you. So it's a little iffy. And even then, well, I don't know, because I'm not defending Dan Quinn, because again, I don't have Washington going. I don't believe in Minnesota. Just even if Sam Darnold becomes the pumpkin that everyone's waiting for, I just don't believe in Sam Darnold anyway. He's not winning
he
a Super
avoided
Bowl.
Pumpkin Watch. He did outlast October before people started
Um,
going off on him.
well, it's the first game in November, so
That's
maybe
true.
turn of the clock. That's maybe at midnight. You
This
have
is going to
Green
be a
Bay, you
very
have Atlanta,
interesting one.
and Arizona. Green Bay, Arizona, Atlanta. I just none of them teams. So it's just those 3 teams:
Ooh.
Lions, 49ers, and Eagles. Probably only 3 good teams in the NFC in the grand scheme of it.
Now I'm going to ask you about the Packers. Why? Because some analysts have the Packers as a Super Bowl pick, but you don't believe in them. Hmm,
Hamstring issues are hard to get over.
they
And if
are.
Jordan Love came back in, that was an awful game in which he came back in. So bad that he probably should have sat him out. I don't know if it's because he didn't practice. I don't know if it's because of hamstring. But until Jordan Love plays better, what am I resting? What am I resting on? Pass. I can't rest on what he did last year because I got to see what he's doing this year.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That is what
why
people are going to
rest on
say because, but you can't even use last year because even last year he was a tale of 2 quarterbacks. The first half of the season, he was awful. And he threw interceptions all over the place. He was undisciplined. He was making bad decisions. And then in the midway point, he turned it around and they went on a huge winning streak, culminating in them making the playoffs. But now here we are in the next season. All three of the Packers' losses have been when he started. And that's not a good look. And, the injuries are one thing, but the first week you just lost. You just lost to the Eagles, who didn't even look that good to begin with to start the season. It's just a bad look when Malik Willis is coming in and he wins the 2 games that he started, and you've lost 3 of your games, Jordan.
And they
You
lose a
got a lot of,
divisional game.
yeah. Losing in the division is never something you want to do, especially when your division is this good. The worst
Yeah.
team in your division is 500. So it's not a good look, Jordan. But if they can squeak into a wild card spot, which they're 6-3, so they would have to collapse to lose a wild card spot. If they can make it in there, I think they can get at least one win, and then they would probably lose in the divisional.
Yeah, see, that's just the thing. Like, I give you a win in a wild card, but you got to beat your division. They haven't beaten their division yet. They lost to the Lions. They lost to the Vikings. They get ready to play the Bears coming up week after this. If they lose to the Bears, then I don't know what. Well, I don't know what I'm supposed to even consider them then. As far as
Well,
I'm
yeah,
concerned, they're
if
just
if
being.
you lose to all 3 teams in your division, even if you split with them, that's a bad look because they all currently the Lions and the Vikings would have a tiebreaker.
That's my only thing. That's really it. It's just I don't know what to make of it. Nothing against Green Bay. It's just I don't know what to make of it. Well, I don't know.
And
But yeah,
then
anything else you? Yeah, go ahead.
we have my final contending team, and I've been waiting on this one because it's my team, and I can talk about them. And that is the currently 4-4 San Francisco 49ers. Yes, I have us as contenders. We are still the reigning NFC champions. Just want to put that out there for people. We haven't lost that title yet. Now, there's no guarantee we're going to keep that title, but we're 4-4. And to borrow some quotes from some other analysts who I won't name, the Niners and the Steelers look like 2 different teams depending on the day. If you point to their 2 worst games, you could be like, well, this team isn't ready to compete with anybody. I don't know who this team is. Get them off the field. If you look at their 2 best games, you'll say, well, this is exactly who they are. This is the offense we expected them to be. They should be rolling. Now, the fact that the Niners have done this without Christian McCaffrey all season, we're number 2 still in offense with behind Jordan Mason and Isaac Guerendo, my current favorite running back on the team. Um,
Mhm.
Brock Purdy has played well, but he's also played pretty stupidly on occasion. The book is out right now. Until we fix things, the book is out. Brock Purdy struggles to play against man coverage, but in his defense, his receivers were also not getting separation. We were the last ranked team for separation for wide receivers. I think it was like 2.87 yards, not even 3 yards of separation. So Brock is being forced to throw it into tighter windows to guys who aren't getting open. And we're still 4-4. We're still second in offense. We're still 10th on defense. The rushing defense has improved. We did bring in Khalil Davis, not to be confused with Khalil Davis, who's another
Khalil
DT
Mack.
that we have.
I'm kidding.
We're getting McCaffrey back. We're getting Juwan Jennings back. Dre Greenlaw's coming back in a couple weeks. Talanoa Hufanga will be back in a few weeks. By the time we get to the late stretch of the season, we'll be ready to make a run. Now, are we going to win the division, which is what a lot of people say we're going to have to do to make the playoffs? It's possible, but it's not a guarantee. But we are still contenders. We do have a few hard games coming up. We do have to play the Packers. We have to play the Bills. We have to play the Lions. And I'm pretty sure at least 2 of those games are on the road, if not all 3 of them. Those are going to be the toughest tests. But hey, regular season games don't matter as much when you get into the playoffs. So ask the Chiefs, who have regularly lost to the Buffalo Bills in season and then regularly beaten them when it mattered in the playoffs. So I don't know. It could be hubris. Some people don't think we're worth being in that conversation right now because we are only 4-4. Check back in with me in 2 weeks when we're 6-4, and then we'll have a better conversation.
I hear you. No, very valid. I also have 49ers have a strong chance of winning the Super Bowl altogether. If I had them as the best team in the NFC, a lot of it has to do with them. I don't think them being in their final form. They have a few injuries. And when those people come back,
Yeah.
I think that is going to make them the team that they were. And a lot of people thought at the beginning of the season the best team in football. So yeah, you got Brock Purdy. He's already over 2,000 yards.
Yes.
Mason, the backup running back, he's at 685 yards. That's not even with Christian McCaffrey coming back.
Mm-mm.
You figure when he comes back, you can at the very least run a committee. You should still see the same, if not greater, production in that regard. Um,
Shout out to George Kittle too for being the early MVP for the Niners.
exactly. So I don't know. They have a proven track record of just demonstrating a consistency in the playoffs and getting to a high point. The only Achilles that they run into is injuries, especially just in the playoffs. They'll make the Super Bowl unless they run into a significant downfall.
Yeah.
If you're then I believe they're the best team. I think they could beat the Lions. I have a strong feeling they could beat the Eagles. I question who can beat them. They will have their hardest against any of the AFC teams. That's where I feel like the real struggle will come in. But as far as the NFC goes, if the 49ers are fully healthy, I think they're the best team in the NFC. I think they're better than them.
The problem with us is we struggle against quarterbacks that can run. And all four of the best quarterbacks in the AFC have wheels. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow. They can all run when they need to. Hell, Joe Burrow just had like a big run this season for like 50 yards or something for a
Yeah.
touchdown. Yeah.
That's something that's something that people don't think about when it comes to Joe Burrow, his ability to run as well. But you know what? That goes to the down. Well, that goes to Jalen Hurts and the benefit of the Eagles in that case. But that goes against the hindrance of Jared Goff. He doesn't run.
He
Another
doesn't.
reason why I feel as if the Niners can have an advantage over the
Yeah.
Lions.
Look at the Niners' biggest wins so far this year. Almost all of them come with quarterbacks who traditionally don't run as much. Dak Prescott does not run. Jacoby Brissett wasn't going anywhere anyway. Aaron Rodgers, forget about it. It's not one of those things that they do. And Seattle, Geno's not running.
No, that's true. Not effectively at least. No, he's not.
Now,
It is just
this week, this week could be a little interesting because Baker is not a runner because we play the Buccaneers this week. He's not a runner, but he has the ability to get that sneaky first down if he needs to. That's the thing. Very much Brock Purdy-esque in that regard. If they need to get those few yards, that are like if they're on like a 3rd and 3 or 3rd and 4, they will run and get those
yeah, getting the extra yards when needed. I
yards.
mean, that makes you got to do what you got to in that case. But still, it's not good enough to beat the team. It's just that overall, yeah, I know you do bad running quarterbacks, but you still get the advantage of the Cardinals. I don't, unless
Oh
they
no,
run into Lamar Jackson, I don't know who else is
I
a real AFC teams. Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, I fully expect when we get healthier, because we shouldn't have lost the first time, I fully expect to split with the Cardinals and the Rams. We're going to win the second matches because they will both be in our house. Actually, no, the second one is in Arizona. That was in our house. Um, I believe we will win. With the Rams, we just kind of let the foot off the gas. I don't know what that was all about. We just kind of figured we had the game in the bag, and then Ronnie Bell didn't catch a crucial catch that we needed to. I don't know. I'm going to say this. I don't know why Ronnie Bell's still on the team. I don't know if he has dirt on Kyle Shanahan or what the deal is. He has not made a significant impact in any time he's been used. He's not been a good wide receiver. He's not been a good return guy. He's not a good blocker. He's not a good shooter on punt returns. What does he do, Kyle, that you like so much that you're playing
What is it?
him over Jacob Cowing? I don't understand.
What is it you say you do here exactly?
Right, exactly.
You-
But he's still on the roster. We didn't put Tariq Davis on the roster. I'm sorry, Tariq Owens, the son of Terrell Owens. He's not on the roster. He's on the practice squad. But Ronnie Bell is. I guess because he went to Michigan. I guess that's our. Sorry, we'll do you a solid, Jim Harbaugh. We got one of your boys here. But
Yeah, not that much of hard feelings at least. Um, yeah. All right, but yeah, I like the Niners. Can't say it enough.
those are my contenders. Now, pretenders, it's a different conversation.
All right, well, yeah, who's your pretenders then? Who are the people who you feel as if are playoff, but they're not winning. They're just in it, but you're not legitimate.
Well, we've already mentioned a couple. The Vikings, I agree with your assessment on that. The Commanders is going to be the one people don't like, but it's the truth. Like, they look good. Don't get me wrong. They look great, but a rookie quarterback doesn't make the Super Bowl. That's just kind of how the standard goes. I don't believe in their defense enough to get through the NFC playoffs because when you get to the NFC playoffs, they're going to have to play at some point. They're going to have to play the Lions or the Niners or maybe the Eagles if they're there. They're going to have to play them. They're going to have to play them anyway because that's in their division. They haven't played them yet. So that'll be a telling tale as well. I don't know if they can win playoff football because, yeah, you're having a lot of fun in the regular season with a few games where the spotlight's not on you. Now, the spotlight was on during the Bears game because it was number one versus number two, and then it had the Hail Mary. But a lot of their games, they're not being as heavily watched because they're not the game of the week. They're not the most important game, so most people aren't watching the Commanders. What are you going to do when everybody's watching, Jaden? Because that's what's going to happen during the playoffs. All eyes are going to be on you. All your positives will be highlighted. All your negatives will be exacerbated.
Well, just to let you insight, they will have a Thursday night game coming up on November the 14th against the Philadelphia Eagles. That'll be a
Oh,
prime
okay.
time. Other He has played in prime time. He played a Monday night game against the Bengals. The Eagles did win that 38-33. So he's had some spotlight events. Most of the other
Mm-hmm.
games have been 1 o'clock, maybe one other 4:05. But I do agree. It's not nothing against Washington, but I will say this: I don't have them as contenders. I do have them, I guess you could say, as pretenders, but proof is in the pudding about ownership. Snyder leaves his team. He's kicked out of the league, and look what happens to Washington. They turn it around. They
Right.
have something that they can look forward to moving forward. I don't
That's true.
know. Maybe the Panthers could consider this. Maybe the Cowboys could look at this. There is something to be said about ownership that isn't so vocal, or at least wants to try to win. That's
When you
all.
look at, no, that's fair because I think the Panthers, well, I was going to say I think the Panthers might have the most hated owner, but that could easily be Jerry Jones as well.
Yeah, right.
That's the thing. I should not know the owner's name on your team that well. It should not be a household name. All right, Jerry, you're doing something wrong. All right. The fact that you insist on being in the spotlight is taking away from the Dallas Cowboys. Also, shout out to the tradition continuing because the Cowboys are so bad. We will not have a repeat winner in the NFC East for the 21st season. It is going to be a new team.
All right, look at that. NFC least, NFC Beast. They always fluctuating, but it's always exciting. Any other pretenders on your list?
Ooh, pretenders. Shout out to the Denver Broncos. Sean
Mm,
Payton, I respect what you're doing. I'm only going to call them pretenders for maybe this year and the next. If Bo Nix can get better, they can actually do something because right now their offense is holding them back. Now they have a rookie who's a little raw. You know, they're still working with him. Sean Payton hasn't had a rookie in a long time to deal with. But they are 25th in offense. That's pretty bad. That's bottom of the pack, not even midway. But they're being saved because they are top 10 defense. They have Patrick Surtain back there. Their linebackers are getting the job done. Their line is hard to run on. They are sixth in total defense. If they can improve that offense, maybe pick up some free agents in the offseason, they could be a contender. But this year, no, they're not contending this year. As a matter of fact, I mean, any team that's in the division with Patrick Mahomes, you're not winning the division. So your only hope is to make a wild card spot at this point. And 5-4, you got the Ravens are 6-3, the Bills are 7-2, the Steelers are 6-2. You know, it's not a good look that they would be a lock to make the playoffs right now. So no, they're pretenders.
okay, all right. Now, I will say, I know it's a team that wasn't on your list that I don't know. I feel like might have been a little snubbed. What about the Steelers? Considering the win they're coming off of, turning it around, putting Russell Wilson on the back, having Russell Wilson hold them up. Mike Tomlin going into his 18th season without a losing record
Hey.
so far. I mean, it's not over yet. What about the Steelers?
If the Steelers can maintain this level of offensive consistency, then they'll be a contender soon. They're just kind of sitting outside of my list. It's not that I didn't want to put them on there. It's who would I be taking off to put them on there? And the only team that I could argue with is the Eagles. Take the Eagles
Right.
out, put the Steelers in. That would be it because I'm not taking anyone else. I'm not taking the Bills or the Ravens or the Chiefs out, and I'm not taking the Lions and the Niners out. So that would be the only team. It would be the Eagles.
Yeah, that would be me personally. I would take the Eagles out because I like Shaquan Barkley. I think but again, you talk about your main weakness, and what was that? Nick Sirianni. You don't trust him. Let me
I know.
ask you, line by line, who do you trust in the situation, Sirianni or Mike Tomlin? Understanding
Tom.
Mike Tomlin's playoff success also can be kind of iffy, but gun to your head, who you choosing?
I mean, Mike Tomlin's done one thing, and that's been consistent. Man has not had a losing season. It don't matter who you put out there. Man's had to deal with Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett, and Mason Rudolph. Was it
Corpse
Duck
of Ben
Hodges,
Roethlisberger.
right? The
Uh,
ghost of Roethlisberger.
Charlie Batch for like the
Oh
30th
my gosh.
season.
And now
Hey,
he's
he's
had
dealt with a
Justin
lot.
Fields and Russell Wilson. A lot he's had to deal with. But as long as that defense holds, they have TJ Watt back there, Minka Fitzpatrick's back there. They're a contender, but they're not on my list just yet. They are coming off a bye. So let's see how they do this week. If they do this week, if they are 7-2 next week, I have no choice but to make them a contender.
No, well, you know what? Guess who they face when they come off their bye? They're facing the Commanders. So getting a little
Oh
taste of
boy.
Jane Daniels against a real team. So get
That
a
is
little two
that
birds with one stone. And then
that
not
will
only that,
be
the Steelers. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say that will be one of the stronger defenses that Jaden's played. So this is actually going to be a good test for him to see if he can beat them.
And
Cause
you talk about the Steelers and their road to competition. They'll be finishing out with Washington, Ravens, Browns, Bengals, Browns,
geez,
Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs, Bengals.
oh my
They got
God,
a
that
schedule
is
going
yeah,
into the playoffs.
that is not an easy schedule, and a lot of those games are divisional. On top of that,
They'll be
man,
at those places. They'll be at Browns, at Bengals, at Philly, at Baltimore. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how these teams play out. I still like the Steelers, but hey, let us know in the comments who you think are true Super Bowl contenders, who you think are pretenders, who you think is a sleeper even. In fact,
right?
do you think it may be some potential sleepers besides the ones you mentioned that are pretenders?
Oh, the sleepers, besides the Rams, I do think people are not paying enough attention to them, and maybe it's just because it's my division, but that's kind of bothering me.
Mm,
As far as sleepers go,
I guess we
I
should
would
say the Rams.
I would say the Bears, but it's not them.
No, it's probably the
The
Rams.
only
But
the
other than
only
that, yeah.
yeah, the only other team that I am not 100% sold on, they're sitting right next to the Steelers on my almost list, and that's the Texans. The
Yeah.
Houston Texans. And that's because their defense they are not looking that good right now. D'Amico, what are you doing, bro? Like, you're a defensive coach who was a defensive coordinator. Why are you letting all these points get scored, bro? You need to get it together. I understand you have offensive issues. Nico Collins is hurt. I understand that. Joe Mixon was hurt earlier in the year, but you just next man up. All right. That's what they tell us. Next man up. You got to get it together, man. This could just be CJ having a sophomore slump because he doesn't quite look as dynamic as he did last year, but it's also a possibility that there's just more tape out and maybe coaches know him a little bit better. I don't know about them. Who do they play this week?
But they'll be
The
playing the
Houston
Jet. I'm
Texans.
sorry, the Lions. The Lions.
Oh, that's
That's
right. Lions, Texans.
the Sunday night game.
Well, there you go. If whoever looks better between the Texans and the Steelers, they might make the contenders list next week. But as of right now, nah, neither one of them are on there.
Hmm. All right. I just Texans. I don't know. We'll see. They were
Well,
supposed
that's
to be
the.
that good last year, and because they were supposed to be that good last year, and since they ended up being better than expected, they get a harder schedule. We're
Hmm.
just seeing who they really are. They're still a rebuilding team.
That's true.
CJ Stroud is just a good quarterback for what it is. You say next man up. Remember, this team was supposed to be tanking. And next man up is nothing but bottom barrel picks, maybe even undrafted. So I just don't. I would expect that much from them. They're going to win the division because it's a bad division. But other than that, that's about as good as they are. They're just better than the other teams in that bad division.
Because the argument's going to be, well, if you're a good enough quarterback, injury shouldn't bother you that much. That's what the argument's going to
Yeah, you're right, and it's not. It's like you mentioned, the defense is the issue. So there's that whole side. They can't stop anyone. They just did better than expected, and they're having a record that reflects it, and that's just not in their favor.
be. Because Patrick Mahomes doesn't have Isaiah Pacheco. He doesn't have Rasheed Rice. Those are his top running back and wide receiver. They are the number ones on that team, and they're just not there.
Coming out of Texans, what they beat the Colts, they beat the Jags, well
They
they beat the
lost to the
Bills.
Jets.
No, they did lose to the Jets, but the Jets, that's their turnaround because they got Devontae Adams. The Jets should have won that game, honestly. They're
The Jets
supposed to
don't.
win all they invested in. They're
The Jets
supposed to
don't
win.
deserve to win.
Deserve is true. I'll give you that. But no, because they did beat. I don't know. We'll see. The Texans are just the best team in the AFC South, but they lost to the Vikings. But that's whatever. Nonetheless.
Oh yeah,
But hey, like I mentioned, we have a game tonight.
we
Big game
do.
tonight.
Yeah.
Ravens, Bengals. Who do you like in this one?
This game just happened not that long ago, and it was a shootout, 41-38, I believe. Ravens won.
Yeah. Yeah, let me go back and pull that up again because we should compare it to those
Yeah,
stats.
because they even asked some of the players after the game, how did you feel about the game? And one of their cornerbacks did go on record. He said, yeah, we won, but it felt like we should have lost. We let too many things happen. And he said the next time we play them, things will be different. Well, that's tonight. So the Bengals, they are riding high right now. They are coming off of a 41-point scoring win over the Vegas. That was their first home win of the season, which sounds wild that we are in that was week 9. And that was the first home game they won this year. Burrow
Wow.
is playing well. He's coming off a game where he was 27 of 39, 251 yards, 5 touchdowns, 1 interception. Now, on the flip side, Lamar and company are also coming off of a game where they scored 41 points, and theirs looks a little more impressive considering it was against the somewhat surging Broncos, and they just completely shut that offense down. They couldn't do anything on them. 10 points allowed. They clamped down. Bo Nix had 0 passing touchdowns. He had an interception. He did catch a touchdown on a trick play. That's how they got to 10 points. But the Ravens looked unstoppable. Like, they did whatever they wanted. Lamar, 16 of 19, 280 yards, 3 touchdowns, 158.3, a perfect passer rating. I mean, when you look at it, it looks like the Ravens are the better team, which is why I'm going with the Bengals. Bengals win this one 35-31, no overtime required. I think the Ravens are going to
No.
lax up a little bit, and I think Joe Burrow is going to have to put this game on his back.
That's a lot of mighty. Okay, I hear you on that one. I do still have the Ravens winning this one naturally. I hear the reasons that you're saying. That overtime win is something I think both teams look at and think to themselves, anyone could have won that whole situation. I hear the idea the Bengals may come in and even want to get revenge on that. No, I just don't see it any other way. The Ravens, I feel, as if have a stronger offense. You can't really stop that run. It is always interesting with divisional matchups meet up with each other because that kind of just negates a lot of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I got the Ravens. I don't have a score, but I do have the Ravens. It's just,
I
of
see.
course,
I
I'm
thought it was
biased.
going
I'm
to be
picking the Ravens
close.
to win it all.
Well, of course,
Yeah.
yeah. Now, I can still pick a team to win it all and have them lose in the regular season. And because, like you
Oh,
said, it
yeah.
is divisional. Joe Burrow and the Ravens, I forget, one of them is like really good against the other one, but I can't remember which one it is. Is it Lamar struggles against the Bengals or does Joe Burrow struggle against the Ravens? Because one of those is, and forgive me in the comments for not having that info on hand.
That's fine. I'll edit this part out.
This is the Bengals. Lamar is 9-2 against the Bengals in his career, so that's the one. So they're due. The way I see it, I don't think that the Ravens are going to take it lightly. Not too lightly. It's just the last time they beat them was because of an overtime win. And Joe Burrow's getting to the point where, hey, the Ravens, they're 6-3. They don't have to quite play as hard as you guys at 4-5. If the Bengals lose this game after already losing to the Ravens once and already currently being they'll be 4-6. That's not a good hole to be crawling out of right now in the AFC. You go 4-6, you might have to win a couple divisional games just to be even considered for a wild card spot at this point, which is why I think the desperate team wins here.
Desperate team is Cincinnati. But that's just the thing about it. Joe Burrow's been playing the best football he can possibly play, and the team still loses for the
Yeah,
most part in some games.
it
Um,
has to be frustrating.
oh,
That's got to be
oh
frustrating.
yeah. Like I said, amazing stat line, but the team's record does not fully indicate it. They're 4-5. They do need a win to maintain any type of playoff hopes. I hear you.
I was kind of
I feel
surprised they didn't do something more during the trade deadline, considering their run game hasn't been the same since Joe Mixon left. You could argue they probably should have kept him, but they're doing okay right now. They have some guys with the Chase Brown. He's had some good weeks. If they can get an established run game and let Joe Burrow use his legs a little more, they could actually be a little bit more dangerous, but that doesn't help the defense.
no, it doesn't. Well, with that, hey, we made our predictions. I got Ravens. Chris has the Bengals. We'll see who wins later tonight. I want you to post in the comments who you think will possibly win tonight, maybe even a prediction score. But if nothing else, I think we'll wrap it up at this point. Unless Chris, you got anything else you want to add on?
Well, if anyone in the comments gets some accurate predictions here, you might get a shout out. Maybe. We'll see. We'll cross that bridge
No,
when
it
we
might
get
work.
to it.
Yeah, we'll work something out. Seeing if we can try to do a predictions.
I
Ooh.
don't know. Looking at the rest of the schedule, the only other thing I would ask is, do you have a game of the week coming up here? Is it this one? And this might be it, actually.
Look, offhand, these games do not look that appealing. But if there's a game I'm looking out for, I guess it'd be tonight's game most definitely because big matchup. But other than that, I mean, ugh.
There's a couple
Yeah, you
games
know
on
what?
here.
Yeah, real quick. I do want to see the Dallas and Philly game. Dallas, I just need to see if they can do something because
But
I also like to see NFC East matchups. That can always be fun.
there's a couple low key games that are not quite as highly hyped that I am going to be have a vested interest in. Jets Cardinals for my own team is actually going to be an interesting one to watch because I want to see if that Jets defense can actually slow down Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray is very quietly having a very good season. He is doing really well right now, and it's not really being talked about because they have 4 losses. There's also some rumblings that Marvin Harrison is not really happy about how he's being used, but he's also a rookie wide receiver. I get it, Marvin, but you just got here, bro. Like, they'll get to use you when they get to use you. Um, but Kyler himself is up there. Like, he is actually in some people's MVP conversations right
Did he come out of injury
last year. Yeah. He came
last
last
year?
year late in the
I
season.
mean,
He
this
came
year.
in. No, he hasn't had any injuries this year. I don't think he's played every game so
Okay.
far. Yeah.
Listen. Well, I mean, that's well. If he's in MVP conversation, then he's not quiet. That means he's being looked at. He does have 4 game-winning drives, but I mean, it's the thing where even with the Cardinals being who they are, it's just I don't know. I still don't think they're better than the Niners.
Well, no, I don't think so either. We lost that game against them because we played poorly. And even then, it took a hit at the end of the game that caused a pick for them to get their 1 point win. If Brock Purdy doesn't do that, we probably go down the field and get a field goal.
And then they also lost to the Bills. They lost to Detroit. They lost to Washington. They lost to Green Bay. And even then, you just mentioned how they lost to the Niners. They haven't beaten anyone. They beat the Chargers. They beat the Dolphins. They beat the Bears.
The
And they
thing
got the
is,
Jets.
The thing is, when they lose, they look bad. Like, I saw that Packers game and they just didn't look good. And the whole time, me and several other Niners fans were online going, how did we lose to this team? But again, that's a divisional game. People don't seem to be taking that into consideration. The Rams and the Cardinals, the reason why I'm so big on them is because divisional games are always weird. They have a weird
Yeah.
air about them.
You're going to see that tonight. That's why you can never really be too comfortable with it because regardless of how the team looks as far as dominance, it could look really ugly when you go against that division rival outside of the Lions and Green Bay this past week. But for the most part, it looked pretty bad.
Oh man, what you talking about? It was raining. That's what they said. It was raining in Green Bay. You expect Green Bay to play in the rain? Come
I don't expect
on.
Detroit, a dome team, to play that well in the rain. How about that as a case? Because they played
That's
extremely
fair.
well. You would have thought those guys were brought up in the rain. That was
That's the thing.
amazing.
When they're on, they are on. That offense becomes a highlight show.
Definitely.
Now you can't call them the greatest show on turf. That name is taken, but they are going to probably have a name if they win the Super Bowl or something. So they'll probably give them a name.
And the Mighty Lions. Some of the Lions?
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll see.
What's their
Let them get there
slogan?
first. We'll see.
This slogan is
Hear me
one
roar?
pride. Yeah, it's one pride.
That's the Lannisters. That's not the same. But anyway. All right. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. You know what? Thank you for joining us. And I hope we'll see you next time. Have a good day.
Go Niners. That's right.
Boom.